Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to the 12th Seminar of the Aeronautical English Research Group, GEIA. We request each one of you to occupy your seats and please silence your cell phones. DECEA, Department of Airspace Control, and DECEA, the Airspace Control Institute, have the honor of receiving you all to the 12th GEIA Seminar. Attention. We have the honor to receive in this room the General Luciano Cantuaria Pietrani, Chief of the Subdepartment of the Administration of DECEA, who will chair the ceremony, accompanied by the Director of DECEA, Colonel Engineer Carlos de Oliveira Zica. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand in respect to the Brazilian national anthem.
Mas
Please, you may sit down. It is a great honor for the organizing committee to welcome all GEIA members, researchers, and aviation English professionals to the 12th GEIA Seminar, hosted this year by DECEA in the city of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, known as Cidade Maravilhosa, or Marvelous City. We are truly delighted to have participants joining us from across the globe. Your presence transforms the seminar into a vibrant international meeting of minds united by a shared commitment to safer skies through education, innovation, and collaboration. Over the next few days, we'll dive deep into key topics shaping the field of aeronautical English, from language assessment and course design to the integration of emerging technologies and AI tools. This year's program places a special emphasis on the balance between technological advancement and the human factors that remain at the heart of aviation safety. Together, we'll explore how language impacts communication, motivation, and decision-making in aviation contexts, and how tech tools can support, not replace, the deeply human skills required for safe operations. Now we would like to invite General Pietrani, representing DECEA, to officially open the conference.
Good morning, everyone. Distinguished authorities, esteemed professors, researchers, pilots, air traffic controllers, ladies and gentlemen. It is a distinct honor to welcome you all to the Department of Airspace Control, DECEA, here in Rio de Janeiro for the 12th GEIA Seminar. As the Sub-Department of Administration Chief, I often speak about radar coverage, satellite navigation, and modernization of our infrastructure. However, none of that technology matters if the human element fails to connect. Today, we gather to discuss one of the most critical software in aviation, language. For over a decade, the Aeronautical English Study Group, GEIA, has been a beacon of excellence, bridging the gap between academic research and operational reality. We know that in the cockpit and in the control tower, a split-second misunderstanding can have severe consequences. That is why the DECEA invests continuously in the Human Performance Enhancement Program. We understand that aeronautical English is more than just vocabulary and grammar. It is a safety tool. This week, as you discuss the language as a human factor, challenges of plain English in non-routine situations, and the future of the proficiency assessment, remember that your work has a direct impact on lives. You are helping to build a robust safety net that protects millions of passengers every year. Wish you all a productive and inspiring seminar. May the discussions held here in the coming days translate into safer operations and clearer skies for everyone. Thank you very much and have a great seminar. Thank you.
Now we are going to hear the words of the DECEA Director, Colonel Carlos Zica.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Airspace Control Institute, ICEA, GEIA members, aviation professionals, and language specialists from around the world to this important international seminar. This year makes a milestone, as it's the first time in 12 years that the GEIA Seminar is being held at Santos Dumont Complex in Rio de Janeiro, proudly hosted by the DECEA. We extend our gratitude to the aviation authorities for recognizing the vital role that both GEIA and ICEA play in promoting safer skies through the advancement of aeronautical communication and language proficiency. ICEA is the military organization responsible for developing initial and recurrent training for the instructors of aeronautical English and raters of the Brazilian Proficient exam, EPLIS. We are thrilled to see that many of them are here today, taking advantage of this unique opportunity for learning and sharing. The seminar underscores the crucial link between effective English communication and aviation safety, reaffirming ICEA's mission of fostering linguistic competence and ensuring secure and efficient air operation. Let's make this week an opportunity for collaboration, learning, and connection. Thank you.
We would like to invite GEIA leader, Dr. Patricia Toski-Lux, to say introductory words and do the launch of the 11th GEIA proceedings.
Excuse me, General. Bom dia. Good morning. Well, so I'm Patricia, and now I'll do the opening and give you some information. So let me see if I can use this. Perfect. Okay. So to start, we like to give a little context about Brazil and Brazilian air traffic control. So we are a country, the largest country in South America. We speak Brazilian Portuguese. And as you can see in this map, we have 5 area control centers, 5 ACC, in Brasília, Curitiba, Recife, ACC Atlântico over the ocean, and Manaus, 42 approach control, 59 control towers, and around 4,000 air traffic controllers. We have 4 syndactas. In Brazil, the air traffic control and air defense are integrated. And here you can see the Rio-São Paulo area with the highest international flow. We call it Dimension 22. That means 12 million kilometers over our territory, our land territory, and 10 million kilometers of international waters. So it's a huge country with huge challenges. Well, as our director just said, ICEA is responsible for the aeronautical English teaching, assessment, and research. So at ICEA, we developed the EPLIS test for Brazilian air traffic controllers. We develop and coordinate national courses and materials. We train our team of instructors and our team of EPLIS raters. And we host GEIA. GEIA stands for Grupo de Estudos em Inglês Aeronáutico, or in English, Aeronautical English Research Group. It was created in 2013, and it's certified by CNPq, the National Council for Scientific and Technological Research here in Brazil. There are 5 lines of research in the context of aeronautical English covered by GEIA. Language description and analysis, teaching and learning, proficiency assessment, and in the past 2 years, we included teacher training and development and language as a human factor in aviation. Well, look at this beautiful, amazing, impressive line of speakers. For this conference this year, we have 36 speakers from 7 different countries, 26 women and 10 men. 140 participants from and 65 different organizations, industry, universities, different air forces, Brazilian Air Force, International Air Force, to ANAC, civil aviation authorities. So we are very happy and proud to see that we are growing and growing each year. We have 2 plenary speakers, one in the opening and on Friday in a closure, and 3 sessions with 9 different presentations with research findings and case studies. And we also have 12 workshops with practical activities and interactions. I'm going to speak about 2 important academic publications that we are launching today, the Book of Abstracts and the GEIA 11 Proceedings. And I would like to say that this year we have 21 members in the organizing committee from 7 military organizations all over Brazil. Well, so from Monday to Wednesday, the seminar is open to the international aviation English community. I hope we provide some opportunities for being updated with state-of-the-art research about aviation and aeronautical English, interacting with people from different contexts and realities, making new friends, networking, practicing conversation in English, getting inspiration to do better in your jobs as teachers, raters, pilots, controllers, researchers, and getting ideas for new research. Maybe you can be the next GEIA speaker. On Thursday and Friday, the event is only for the DECEA instructors, our group of instructors. So my friends, my colleagues from ICEA will provide training and teacher development together with some invited speakers. So this is the team of language experts from ICEA, where we develop our courses. Okay, so we always like to emphasize the integration of GEIA research findings and its application to courses and training developed by DECEA, by our instructors and material designers. Our courses and training are offered for air traffic controllers and aeronautical station operators all over Brazil. We have on-site and online training in national and regional initiatives. Well, some important information. Probably you already saw it, but we have Wi-Fi in this auditorium and in the other lecture hall. So if you hadn't had the chance, there are some internet Wi-Fi signs that you can use because you're going to need it, especially for the workshops. And about the questions, during the lectures and panels, we will use the Mentimeter QR code for questions, okay? So right after this presentation, my organizing team will project the QR code for questions so that you can have this Mentimeter on your cell phones and write the questions. That's the idea. We're not going to ask questions on the microphone. We're going to write questions, okay? Okay, now very important information about lunch and coffee breaks. So today, Monday, we have a complimentary lunch kindly offered by DECEA. So it will be at Inca Air, okay? From Tuesday to Friday, we recommend that everybody could go to a restaurant. There is a very good restaurant inside this complex called Clube da Aeronáutica. And it's next to Incaer, where some of the workshops will happen. Or, alternatively, there are some options at Santos Dumont Airport. But remember that our program is very tight, so you don't have a lot of time for lunches, 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. So we would recommend everybody to go to Clube da Aeronáutica restaurant because it's convenient located. But today, we have the complimentary lunch offered by DECEA. Our coffee breaks. Depending on the program, sometimes the coffee breaks will happen here, just where you saw it this morning, or at Incaer, because sometimes we have the workshops happening there. Okay? So if you don't see the coffee break here, that's because it's there. Okay? And the sunset cocktail. We do have a sunset cocktail this afternoon, right after the event, kindly offered by DECEA too. And it will be from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. Okay? Oh, but where is Incaer? Where are we? There are some maps on the GEIA website, but if you don't know where it is, just follow a member of the organizing committee or ask, and you will find yourselves. Okay? Guys, I would like to tell you about the special dinner. We do have a special dinner happening tomorrow. So for those who enrolled for this activity, I will ask you to look for Rodrigues. Rodrigues, where are you? Oh, he's inside there. Okay. So Rodrigues will be around, and he will ask the people that are attending the dinner about transfer. We're going to see if it's possible to offer transfer depending on the time and place where you are. I think we still have maybe 4 or 5 places. So if you haven't registered and you would like to go to the special dinner, please look for Rodrigues, and he will give you more information about it. Okay, about the workshops. So the workshops are going to be, the audience, the participants are going to be divided into 2 groups. I'm sure that you all received an email telling that you were either in Group A or Group B. So how did you make this division? It was in alphabetical order, okay? So if your name starts from Adriana to Leonardo, your first name, you will be in Group A. If your first name is from Lígia to Yuri, you will be in Group B. So we decided to do it in alphabetical order so that we can have a random group of participants. We have air traffic controllers, pilots, teachers, instructors, raters, Brazilian, foreigners, okay? So please keep where you are. Don't change if you are in Group A or if you are in Group B. Please respect the group where you are, okay? All the workshops will be offered twice. So some of them will be here in this auditorium, and some of them will be at Incaer. So you can check the program to see if you are in Group A or B, and if your workshop is going to be here or there. But you will have the opportunity to do all the workshops, okay? Please, bring your cell phones or tablets or laptops, because for some workshops, they will be needed. And don't forget the battery charged. Okay? All the sessions and lectures and plenaries will be here at this place. Only the workshops, some workshops will be at the Incaer auditorium. Okay, now let's move to the launch of the proceedings. So many people asked me, Patricia, what are proceedings? Proceedings are a published collection of academic papers presented at conferences, symposium. In Portuguese, we call it Anais do Evento. Okay? So, every year, we invite all the GEIA speakers of the seminars to write a paper about their presentation, about their talks, and we peer review it. scientifically and prepare the proceedings of the seminar. So it is an year-long process. We invite the people, there are some deadlines for them to submit the papers, we send them for review, we come back to the authors, and then we publish it after 1 year. So this year we are launching the proceedings of GEIA 11, okay? And we have a very special reason to celebrate this year, because now we have 2 important identification numbers for those who are researchers or academic or familiarized with curriculum lattes or other things like that to prove your qualifications. DOI and ISSN are important indexes to represent your publication, your paper to the academic community. So this year we got the DOI, that means Digital Object Identifier. It's an identification for an academic publication. And the ISSN, that is it's a number that identifies the periodical publication. So now we consider the proceedings of GEIA like a journal. Okay, is that clear? So this is an important milestone. We are very happy to have this because you can add it to your resumes, to your academic curriculum. And I would like to thank my friend and colleague, Juliana, Dr. Juliana. Where is Juliana? Oh, okay. Juliana, thank you very much. She worked very hard. Juliana is GEIA Vice Leader, my colleague at ICEA, and she worked very hard to get this important milestone for us. So this is the proceedings of GEIA 11, okay? You can see here, it has the ISSN, the DOI, and it's composed by 2 short papers, 4 case studies, 2 full papers, and 3 interviews from GEIA 11, from last year. So I invite you all to read. They are very interesting and important papers. And I would like to say that the proceedings are going to be published in 3 different places. They are, you can find the information about it in our GEIA 12 website with all the links for download. So you just need to go to our GEIA 12 website, and it's all there. But it will be published, too, in our GEIA main website. So I invite you all, if you don't know it yet, you can check the GEIA website with a lot of information from our 12 years of history. And now we are publishing at Zenodo. Zenodo is an European repository for research. It's free of charge, and now we can find GEIA publications at this European base, this European repository too, called Zenodo. So you can see we published it last week, I guess, and we already have 8 views and 5 downloads, like 2 or 3 days that it's there. So it's an important outline for the international community. It's also published at the Embry-Riddle Scholarly Commons. Embry-Riddle is a very prestigious aeronautical university, very famous among the international aviation community. So we are very happy to see that it's published at Embry-Riddle Scholarly Commons too. We published it like a week ago, I guess, if I'm not mistaken, and we already have 30 downloads, less than a week. So we can see the visibility that what we are doing are having internationally. Just for you to have an idea, Embry-Riddle has been publishing our GEIA proceedings since 2023. So we already have 244 downloads. This is the picture from GEIA that happened in 2023. We're going to take our picture in a few minutes from this event. Another publication that we have is our Book of Abstracts. So every year we publish the Book of Abstracts, and now we do have the ISSN and the DOI for our Book of Abstracts too. So it's an indexed publication that you can add to your resumes, to your academic publications. If you want to know more about it, there are some links in the PDF in our GEIA website. So this is the Book of Abstracts from this year. It is at Zenodo, that European platform, and we already have some views and some downloads. Well, so to each of you that are here, I would like to thank you very much for being here. Your contribution helps elevate this event and strengthens our global network. May this week be filled with learning, inspiration, and meaningful connections. I would like to mention that this week is Thanksgiving week, and we have the Thanksgiving Day on Thursday. And I know maybe in Brazil it's not so traditionally celebrated here in Brazil, but I know that in the United States, in some other countries, it is a very important holiday. So I would like to thank our international participants that came during this holiday. You know, it's a very important, I would say that it's like Christmas or even more important than Christmas. So thank you very much for coming to Brazil during our holiday. And it's a holiday about giving thanks. Thanks to God, thanks to our friends, to our colleagues. So I would like you to have this feeling, because I'm feeling so thankful for having you all here today, and the General and the DECEA and everybody that provided us this opportunity. So welcome to the 12th GEIA Seminar, and let's make it unforgettable. Obrigada. Well, as I said, this is the QR code for the Mentimeter. So I would like you to take a minute to access this QR code so that you are ready for having questions after our talks.
Thank you, Professor Patricia, for presenting this important milestone for GEIA. We are honored to call the keynote speaker Elizabeth Matthews from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, who will highlight the critical role of language as a human factor in aviation safety. Elizabeth Matthews is an associate professor of the Department of Applied Aviation Science at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University and senior advisor on aviation English worldwide.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here today with you. Thank you to DECEA and to all of the leadership of the Brazilian Air Force and DECEA, and to General Patriani. Thank you all for having me here today, and thank you to my friends, my many friends from Brazil. It's so wonderful to see you all again. So thank you for this opportunity. I titled my slide, my presentation, Language as a Human Factor in Aviation, a New Paradigm. And now I'm going to spend the next 5 or 10 minutes and explain to you why it's not a new paradigm. First, I want to let you know that all of the information I'll be sharing with you today comes from a Embry-Riddle research project that the findings, the phase 1 of our findings are published in the Applied Psychology and Aviation Human Factors. So the primary question that I'll be exploring today is, how do we, the community of aviation English professionals, of academically prepared linguists, how do we respond to the increasing awareness of the critical role of language throughout aviation, given the gaps that remain around language within the industry overall? So please just explore this with me. keep an open mind and let's have a discussion and a dialogue about the vast role of language throughout aviation. So I said that I was going to show you how the concept of language as a human factor is actually not a new paradigm. I didn't invent it, but when I stumbled upon it, I sure decided to pick up that football and carry it down the field. That's an American football illusion. We pick up the ball and we run with it. We all need to pick up the ball. But the first person that I know to talk about language as a human factor was aviation psychologist Paul Chapanis. He was an engineer working for as a civilian for the U.S. Air Force. And in 1965, he said this: language is a uniquely human factor. I got pretty excited when I read that it comes from 1965. I was going to say when not many of you were born yet, but I was. I want to just tell you a moment about who Paul Chapanis was and his importance to aviation human factors. He was a researcher, and in the 40s and 50s, the B-17s were crashing a lot on landing. So he was brought in, and he noticed that the switch for the flaps looked almost identical and was very close to the switch for the landing gear. And so he figured out it was human error, but you can't blame the humans. It was a matter of liveware, hardware interaction. So he simply worked with the Air Force and the airplane manufacturers to make a change so that the gear for the flaps looked very different than the gear for the landing, to let down the landing gear, and that solved that problem. So he's known in the United States as one of the fathers of aviation human factors. And so he said this, that language is a uniquely human factor, and he said it's an aspect of human factors that are almost entirely neglected, and that language problems are serious, he said in 1965, and that they have been largely ignored. So this is why it's especially gratifying to be part of the GEIA Research Center and be able to come together in international forums where we all take the role of language throughout aviation safety seriously. But Paul Chapanis also identified that language was the single most important determiner of success for flight schools for NATO between 1950 and 1970, that the language proficiency of the flight students was the most important impact on their success in flight school. He also noted that in World War I and World War I, the French and English-speaking pilots had challenges flying together, learning together. So what this highlights for me is that the issue of language in aviation safety, not only for radio telephony communications, but also for flight training and other aspects of aviation safety, is not new. We didn't discover it. But, my colleagues, before you fall too much in love with Paul Chapanis, I need to tell you, he also said this, that the language and words of machines is properly the concern of the human factors engineer. I agree with that. But he said also, it's not the concern of the grammarian, that would be us teachers, the linguist, or the communication theorist. So this is where Paul Chapanis and I begin to diverge a little bit. But that's interesting for me because I think that what we know from Embry-Riddle's long collaboration with DECEA, and what I know everybody who works in the field of aviation English or aeronautical English know, is that aviation English requires a close collaboration between our aviation operational subject matter experts and the academically qualified language teachers and applied linguists. We work together. So what does this mean? That's what I was going to say. Aviation and human factors specialists must collaborate with applied linguists. And in many ways we do. Many ways we do. In DECEA, in our close partnership with Embry-Riddle, we absolutely do. But there are other aspects related to language in aviation safety where I think we need to call for more collaboration. Let me show you. So human factors, you know, is a complex aspect of aviation safety. Human factors is a big category. Within human factors, the field of communications is also complex and broad. Within communications, language is one part of communications. In communications, at our Embry-Riddle research project, we have developed a taxonomy of communications in aviation that I spoke about last year at the GEIA online conference. And we have identified that there are technical communication factors that can impede communication. There are procedural communication factors that can impede communications. Cultural factors are fairly better known within the aviation industry for being important aspects of communication. And of course, we all know that language factors impact communication, but it can be harder for the aviation safety specialist to know how. And that's our job as linguists and aviation English teachers, not only to teach aviation English well and test aviation English well and fairly, but also to share our perspective about language with our aviation human factors sisters and brothers. So, because language is also quite complex. So what happens when we don't collaborate? So these are, I read a lot, and these are misstatements about language that I have come across in aviation human factors textbooks, recent textbooks. So I'm not here to criticize any of these authors, but there are many, misunderstanding about language that applied linguists can help with. And so these are just some examples. They may sound good, but if you have a background in applied linguist, you can, if you want, during a break, ask one of the teachers or the applied linguists to talk to you about what might be wrong with these. For example, in one textbook, it says that standard English can be defined as pronunciation according to the dictionary and using language that conforms to the rule of grammar. I see some of my language teacher friends shaking their heads, so thank you. That's not helpful, and it's not true. It sounds good, but it's not exactly true or very helpful. Spoken language is more likely to be misinterpreted than written language. It's also not true. It's just as easy to misunderstand an aviation flight manual or a maintenance manual as it is to, for different reasons, there are challenges. But it's not accurate to say that spoken language is more likely to be misinterpreted. Another textbook said spoken language uses pronunciation and accent for clarification. It's not clear to me what that means. And when I was at ICAO, I was the linguistic consultant to ICAO during the development of the ICAO language proficiency requirements. And I had numerous individuals write to me in ICAO, mostly from England, and say, develop one universally accepted and agreed upon standard accent dialect. And that's not possible. I will never sound like Patricia Toski-Lux when she speaks, or vice versa. We all have an accent and a distinct dialect, and it doesn't matter. We can communicate successfully. So this is just a little example of how human factors textbooks will benefit when you're talking about language or communication, from reaching out to GEIA or to one of your friends or colleagues who works in our field of aviation English, and let us help you with that chapter. Let us collaborate. Bring linguistic, I'm making the call for my human factors friends and colleagues and specialists to bring applied linguistics into your work too. There's a gap in the understanding of the role of language in aviation. There are other reasons to bring a linguistic perspective into aviation. In one part of the world, and everything I'm sharing with you today, friends, I'm not criticizing anyone. It's not my nature to criticize. It's my nature to work to improve and to help. English teachers, we are a caring group of people. We like to help. So please take all of the information I share today in that. Let's work together. So there is a new regulation in one part of the world that requires that aerodrome vehicle drivers must demonstrate English language proficiency at ICAO operational level 4. That's on the books. And there are, if I were having a workshop, I would ask you to brainstorm what might be wrong with that. But I am not having a workshop right now, so I will explain that the ICAO rating scale was not developed for vehicle drivers. The context of their use of English is very different from the context for pilots and air traffic controllers. And next, you have to ask, we have to understand, who are vehicle drivers? What is their life context? How much contact have they had with learning English in their life so far? What is the language proficiency that vehicle drivers need? I'm not saying that they don't need English, but I'm saying that we have to think about that problem, that language problem, in the context of their work, how much they use English. So it's a bigger problem than simply saying ICAO level 4. How long does it take to achieve operational level of English proficiency? So overall, aviation policy must be guided by the expertise of applied linguists. Together, we will always do better work. We do better work when we collaborate with our aviation operational specialist, and the aviation industry will do better to continue to seek out our input and our expertise. So there's a gap. I'm helping you understand what the gaps are in the aviation industry around language. There's a gap in the development and application of language policy in aviation. ICAO says that no accident investigation can be complete without a thorough consideration of human factors issues involved. So I didn't write that. That was ICAO, a thorough consideration of human factors. I put a QR code in case anyone wants to read an article about this crash of Helios in the Aero Safety World magazine. Patricia, these PowerPoints will also be on the website so people can go back and look at it. I wrote an article for Flight Safety Foundation about the language factors involved in the crash of Helios. And now is the time for me to clarify that in our research at ICAO, when we're reviewing accident investigation reports, we never second guess the conclusions or the decisions or the recommendations of the accident investigators. What we do look at is we identify information they gathered. We only use official accident investigation reports. not news reports, not anyone's opinions, and we identify when it is valid, that language is a valid investigative question, and that's where we stop. On our research team, we have accident investigators, one from Brazil, Flavio Mendoca, if anybody knows him, and Rick Valdez, experienced accident investigators. We have senior linguist, Dr. Joan Carson, was on the research committee for about 10 years and recently retired. And now Dr. Marcus Biswanger, and another Brazilian, Miguel Lucas Ribas, who's doing his PhD now, formerly air traffic controller with DECEA. So we never second guess, but we do look at what the accident investigation report said. And in this accident, the investigators determined that crew resource management was a contributing factor. In their findings, they noted that before hypoxia began to affect the flight crew performance, inadequate crew resource management contributed to the failure to diagnose the pressurization problem. Well, when an aircraft has a pressurization problem, the one thing they don't have is time. They need to respond quite quickly. So if there's a inadequate CRM affected their failure before hypoxia, it's an important factor. And the accident investigators determined that inadequate application of crew resource management was a latent cause. And the report identified that the pilots had had recent training in crew resource management. There were numerous references to language throughout the report, including this one. They said in the report, the language difficulties prolonged resolution of the problem while the aircraft continued to climb. However, in the end of the report, in the formal findings, there were no findings related to language, and there were no language-related recommendations. So you all know that it is accident investigation findings and recommendations that drive safety changes in the industry. So in all of the accidents that we've reviewed in our research project, we see that accident investigators don't hold back from identifying language. Then the issue becomes they identify factors, but it's hard to connect the dots because language itself is quite complex. So there is a gap in the investigation of possible language factors in aviation accidents. I don't like to talk about problems without trying to bring at least part of a solution. So at Embry-Riddle, our research committee has made a handbook for the investigation of aviation and accidents for accident investigators, for aviation accidents and serious incidents. You can get it on the Embry-Riddle website, or there's a QR code. So you're welcome to that, and maybe it's something that could be on your website, Patricia. The industry also can get misleading information. Again, I'm not trying to criticize, but it's important that anybody who needs to buy or develop an aviation English program know all of these come from internet advertisements. And if an organization, an aviation English program, promises you to move to get your ICAO level 4 in as little as 60 days, yes, thank you. Yeah, or to pass your ICAO test the first time. There's so much misinformation. When ICAO adopted the language requirements, it created a global need for aviation English. That also creates a global opportunity for aviation English programs. We just need to start thinking about how to ensure that they are all adhering to academic standards of best practices for language teaching. In this bottom one, there's an aviation English company that says it was founded by people with hands-on knowledge of aviation psychology, training, and management. But what I want them to also have as part of their team is language teacher, applied linguistic expertise. And if they have it, they don't say so. So we need to, now I'm talking to my aviation English colleagues, my friends, we need to work to help lift awareness about language learning and language acquisition and language teaching and how long it can take. It's a hard message to communicate. So I reference the Cambridge booklet, How Long Does It Take to Learn a Language? And ICAO in document 9835, we published the 200-hour guideline that's very well founded and grounded in language research. And that's 200 hours specifically for measurable improvement. It doesn't always necessarily mean, as my language teachers can affirm, that someone is going to move from 3 to 4 with just 200s. I wish that were true, but the reality is that a better way to think about language learning and language acquisition is a lifelong process of continuous learning. We never learn a language. I've been learning Spanish since I was 10 years old. And my Spanish is fine, but I keep having to enhance and improve. So there's a gap. There are no bars to becoming an aviation English teacher globally. There may be in some places, but there's no bars. So this is something that my younger colleagues need to take and start thinking about, because when we have 17 or 18-year-old students come to an American language institute to learn English or to go to a commercial program, the language, the effectiveness of the program doesn't have safety implications. But in our industry, it has safety implications, it has economic implications. So the gaps around language in aviation would scarcely be tolerated in other aspects of aviation safety. We've been focusing since 2004, when ICAO first started publishing the ICAO language standards on aviation English radio telephony. And that was right. That was the right thing. We needed to do it. But as the industry becomes aware of the language requirements from ICAO, it just increases awareness of the role of aviation and other aspects of aviation safety. So we as community of GEIA community and applied linguists need to start thinking about how we can help the industry in other ways. So let's just go back for a moment. What's an applied linguist? When you tell someone that you are an applied linguist, this happens to me all the time, the first thing they ask is, how many languages do you speak? Has that ever happened to any of my friends? How many languages do you speak? Well, I speak one well. I speak Spanish okay, and I have some French bad, Turkish bad, Japanese worse. But that's not what a linguist is. That's got nothing to do with being a linguist. A linguist is a person who brings a scientific understanding of language to address language problems in society. Very often we work on language policy in universities or governments, language testing, of course, language teaching, and teacher training programs. But our role in aviation is evolving. And I wanted to show you some key events in the history of language as a human factor in aviation since it started in the early 1900s. So I'm jumping ahead to 1958 and 1959 with the introduction of jet engine into commercial aviation. That increased the need for the industry to understand aviation human factors. The aircraft were moving faster, farther, higher, with more passengers, so it became more important to understand human factors. And then, of course, famously in 1977, Tenerife happened, the runway collision at Tenerife. And shortly after, the next year, there was in the United States in Portland, a United aircraft crashed after fuel exhaustion. And so what these two accidents had in common was communication. And this highlighted to the industry that making the planes perfect, dealing with the engines and the actual machine was not enough. We also we understood from Tenerife that communications were every bit as important as the operational procedures and the aircraft themselves. So that really got people interested in language. And after that, there were many more research projects and papers about language in aviation. And then in the 1990s, I was at Embry-Riddle as the director of the Language Institute during those years, well, starting in 94. There were 4 accidents that were very high profile in which accident investigators identified language factors. And so this got the interest of the aviation industry and concern. And what those accidents had in common was they all involved radio telephony communication between pilots and air traffic controllers. And India, after the Chakri 1997 mid-air collision over India, it was, in fact, the state of India that proposed to ICAO, and that got us, let me go back up, those language proficiency requirements have kept all the aviation English teachers and testers in the room busy until today. But then in 2005, Helios happened. And that made us aware, because in Helios, it was not a problem with radio telephony communications. In Helios, we had a German-speaking pilot, captain, and a Greek-speaking first officer. And when they had their pressurization event, they had trouble communicating. And then they reached out to the ground engineers, and there was more language difficulties. The report talked about pronunciation, and there were more language difficulties communicating with the ground engineer. And as I said, when you have a pressurization problem, what you don't have is time. And so the Helios alerted us to the fact that, in an international context, in a multicultural flight deck, language is also very, very important. Okay, I'm stuck. Why am I stuck? This doesn't work right now. Maybe I've spoken enough, but I don't know what time it is anyway. What am I saying next? They're working on it. Okay. Oh, sure. Is it bad, my microphone? So sorry. So, hello. Okay. So in our research at Embry-Riddle, we have identified more accidents in which language was identified by accident investigators, at least as a valid investigative question. Some of them, the investigators identified language in particular. There's one I want to point out, and that is Russia in 2012. In 2012, it's the first accident investigation I know where they actually brought an applied linguist as part of the team. That's Sergei Melnichenko from ICAO. So language impacts aviation safety in many ways. It's a critical component of radio telephony, of crew resource management, of reading and comprehending aircraft manuals, of understanding training delivered in English, and more. Whoops. Come on. Okay. So there's so much we don't know. Language as a human factor, if we broaden our perspective a little bit, there's so much that we don't know about the use of language in aviation. And that's where I encourage our community of applied linguists to collaborate with aviation operational specialists and begin to explore and investigate these other aspects. So Luft, I believe, is the missing piece in human factors in aviation. And I didn't say it first. Alphonse Chapanis said it first in 1965. But I want to be clear that Luft is linguistics. Luft requires the input of applied linguists, and Luft is also human factors. It's not only about radio telephony. Aviation English, we need to broaden our perspectives and partner with aviation operational specialists. I also urge the aviation community to reciprocate and reach out to us and include us in your work too. But we, applied linguists, we need to make it easy for our aviation operational friends to reach out to us and to work with us. So how do we do that? At Embry-Riddle and DECEA, we're integrating language as a human factor into our aviation English programs. We teach the Embry-Riddle Handbook and the taxonomy. At Embry-Riddle, we have a course on language as a human factor, and I believe that our colleague, Dr. Aline Pacheco, also teaches a course on language as a human factor for credit at her university in Phuket, the second university I know that does that. So aviation English is not a separate standalone, and I say this sometimes. We all know what a safety management system is. If your safety management system doesn't account for language, then it's still incomplete. And that's true for airlines and any organization in aviation that has to work in an international context. So I think I've said this enough. We need teachers, we need curriculum, aviation subject matter experts, and an understanding. And I have one final message. Measuring your corn stalks doesn't make them grow faster. In aviation English, I think it's fair to say that there has been more interest in the testing and in the ICAO rating scale, which is good, that's fine. But we need at least that much energy in aviation English teaching and curriculum and teacher training. That because it's teaching and teacher training and excellent curriculum that is the sun and the soil and the water and the care that enhances aviation safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Matthews, for the outstanding talk. We have some minutes for questions.
Rodrigues, where are you? Okay, So while we are preparing the questions, I would like to remind you that if you are interested in attending our special dinner tomorrow, please look for our friend Rodrigues, and as soon as possible until midday today, because I think we still have 5 or 4 places available. And also, if you already registered for the dinner, look for Rodrigues if you are interested in transfer from your hotel to the restaurant. Thank you.
What is the biggest?
Okay, we do have some questions. You can pick two, maybe 2 or 3, because we don't have time for all of them. So which? Okay. Okay, thank you. So now we will ask the questions using the questions that. Okay. So you would like to read the question and answer, or you would like us to read the question for you?
What is the biggest challenge when you teach old pilots that aren't native English speakers?
That's an excellent question. The first challenge is helping older pilots believe that our ability to learn and enhance our English language proficiency doesn't die. It doesn't fade away. The universe, however humans were created, never made us for our ability to learn another language goes away. I can prove that if I take someone elderly like me. I think I'm the oldest person here. If I take someone elderly and put me down in the middle of a village in China where I don't have TV, I don't have telephone, I don't have computer, I don't have my cell phone, I sure will learn the words for rice and maybe beer really quickly, right? And I will keep learning. And if you come back in 6 months, I'll have reasonable proficiency, more than survival. The problem, I will admit, is that as we get older, we're busy. So the problem is not any kind of neurological ability not to learn language, except for one aspect, but it's time and how busy we are and the opportunity to engage. Language learning is not a quick fix, a box, and you check the box and you're done. It's a lifelong process. I wish that weren't true, but it is true. And there are better linguists in this room than me, like Dr. Friganol and Patricia Toski-Lux, and who can talk about the neurology of, or the psychology of learning languages. But as we get older, our pronunciation is never going to sound like our kids when they learn a foreign language. But you can learn, you can continue to learn. Just another question I'll show you. There's too many questions. Too many questions. Maybe
No,
it's the
no.
speaker. Another question is, let me just be easier. Do you think that ICAO for other professionals would help? So I hesitate very much to, I don't want, me personally, I hesitate very much for ICAO to make language standards for crew resource management or flight training or maintenance technicians. We haven't got our arms around English for air traffic controllers and pilots globally. Brazil is a leader, but globally there are many, many struggles. So I think it's better to lead by producing wonderful, effective teaching programs. Note that I don't say training. I don't use the word training anymore for aviation English language teaching. Language teaching is education. Training insinuates that it's shorter. Another question? Are we done? One more. Could you introduce more about the English language? I don't know a lot about it for vehicle drivers, but you can just Google online and you'll find it. Okay, thank you. I think that better. I'll be here all day. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much for your attention.
Professor, thank you for your excellent talk. And she was so generous that she offered us her book. So we're going to raffle it right now. We have 2 books to raffle right now. This book from Elizabeth Matthews, Professor Eric Friginal, who is here too. Yes. And Jennifer Roberts from Embry-Riddle, who is here too. So I'll tell you how we're going to do. We have a list with all people that are here, and you have numbers from 1 to 130. So I will ask Elizabeth to say a number from 1 to 130. 29. That's my age too. Almost. 29. Cláudia Lucimara Travensolo Micheletti. Sou tchau da Aline também. And we also have a book from Professor Aline Pacheco from PUC. Kindly offered us the book. So please, Aline, say a number. 24. Camila Lopes dos Santos. Is Camila here right now? No? So another number, please. 11. Andréia Cristina de Oliveira.
Today is a special day. We will take this moment to honor Professor Matthews for her groundbreaking work and lifelong dedication to enhancing aviation English language as a human factor and operational safety worldwide. Now I would like to invite Professor Patricia Toschi, Professor Aline Pacheco from Pontifical Catholic University of Rio Grande do Sul, and Sergeant Ariane Junqueira, representing the team of our Brazilian Aeronautical English instructor, to say some words. Please.
Obrigada. That side. Yes. Can you hear me? Yes? With an over 30-year career focusing on the role of language in aviation safety, Professor Matthews is internationally recognized for her work in the subject of aviation English proficiency and its relations to operational safety. She served, as she just mentioned, as a language consultant for ICAO for 10 years until 2010 and was a member of the proficiency requirements in the Common Language Study Group, PRICE-ST. She was the person responsible for writing the document 9835, the manual on the implementation of ICAO language proficiency requirements published in 2004. This is the most important document that regulates aeronautical communication in language proficiency training and assessment. And all member states, like Brazil and other countries, and civil aviation authorities have been guided by this publication since then. Professor Matthews has been writing many academic books, press articles, book chapters, and has edited books, just like some of that she showed us during her lecture. And she has been a speaker for the most important conferences in the field, including the Flight Safety Foundation, from which she received an award in May this year. DECEA has a collaboration with Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University since 2018, in which Professor Matthews participated since the beginning as a mentor and curriculum developer. This program included a Plantax mission of an immersion of 2 weeks for our Brazilian Air Force instructors and raters. Many of them are here today. And they went to Embry-Riddle Daytona Beach campus for a 2-week immersion. It also included a long-term online aeronautical English course called EATC for our Brazilian Air Force air traffic controllers who need to improve their proficiency level. This program has reached 45 instructors and over 1,500 Brazilian air traffic controllers. 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to learn about LUFT from Professor Elizabeth, and we have introduced LUFT as a GEIA new research line, just like I mentioned, and included this topic in all our courses developed by the DECEA team of instructors. Considering all of this, we would like to thank Professor Elizabeth Matthews today for being an inspiration for all women in aviation and a leader for those engaged in aviation safety. I will pass now for my friend Aline to say.
Good morning, everyone. It was with immense honor and gratitude that I accepted the invitation to speak today representing pilot language training in my country. Professor Elizabeth Matthews has undoubtedly impacted the lives of everyone who has had the chance to meet her, and certainly the lives of everyone else who has been involved in aviation for the past 20 years at least. Her passion and commitment to her work has surpassed the walls of her classrooms, reaching the International Aviation Authority and our classrooms. She has successfully managed to make us believe that it is possible to build bridges to connect the industry and the academic world by sharing forces and expertise. Language as a human factor, or LUFT, as coined by her, is not only a standpoint which has accounted for factors in the investigation of aeronautical events. It is a theoretical perspective that has been carefully crafted by those who are engaged in this standpoint and help develop it through research and classroom work. I would say without a shade of a doubt that Professor Elizabeth is one of a kind, a professional that has faithfully understood her mission in life, and a remarkable human being whose kindness and ethics profoundly inspire us in every opportunity that we have to learn from her. I would also venture to say that her humbleness and modesty may prevent her from understanding exactly how impactful her work has been, especially here in Brazil. On behalf of all aviation English teachers, trainers, pilots, controllers, thank you for your work. If aeronautical communications are safer today, my dear friend Elizabeth, that is a lot because of you. May we follow your steps with commitment, passion, and involvement towards the cause, and may we succeed in making the skies safer. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Brazilian Air Force Aeronautical English team, I have the great honor to be here today to celebrate the aeronautical English community, especially Professor Elizabeth Matthews and her remarkable contributions to our work. What brings me to this stage today is a journey that began over a decade ago when I became an aeronautical English instructor in 2013. Since then, I have dedicated my career to teaching, developing, and improving the way we perceive language in aviation. In 2018, I experienced a turning point in this journey when I had the privilege to study and work with Professor Elizabeth Matthews at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University through a program promoted by DECEA. That experience was a true milestone in my development and later on in our collective work with LUFT, Language as a Human Factor in Aviation. Well, what we learned from Professor Matthews went far beyond language teaching. She showed us that aeronautical English is not simply about speaking English well. Instead, language proficiency is closely connected to aviation safety. She provided us with the most valuable insight that language is in itself a human factor. It influences how we communicate, interpret situations, make decisions, and above all, keep aviation safe. Inspired by that experience, Professor Patricia Toski and I later designed a LUFT lesson grounded in Professor Matthews' teachings for the new CTP 010 course. We applied her concepts to practice, creating scenarios that were more realistic, communicative, and focused on safety outcomes. Therefore, one of her most significant contributions was highlighting the uniqueness of DECEA's English professionals, who can be both subject matter and language experts. Our instructors and raters combine operational knowledge with language expertise, and Professor Matthews insightfully reinforced this strength in all of us. So today, on behalf of all Brazilian aeronautical English instructors and raters who had the privilege of learning from her, I express our sincere gratitude for her leadership, dedication, and lasting impact on our professional journey. And this brings me to a thought that guides much of our work here. Well, there's a well-known saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, in aviation, it takes a village to raise a controller. A village built on training, mentorship, language awareness, and a consistent commitment to safety. For sure, Professor Matthews has been playing an essential role in this village. I would also like to thank Dr. Patricia Toski for the opportunity to speak on such a special occasion, and DECEA for providing this excellent venue that hosts the GEIA Seminar. And finally, thank you, Professor Matthews, for your legacy, guidance, and invaluable contribution to the development of aeronautical English in Brazil.
Now, General Pietrani will deliver a plaque of honor to Professor Matthews as a sign of DECEA appreciation of her contribution to aviation English worldwide. Words from Professor Matthews.
Ladies and gentlemen, and Pietrani, if I may take the opportunity to express my profound thank you to the entire leadership of DECEA and the Brazilian Air Force and of GEIA for this tremendous honor. I feel frankly overwhelmed with gratitude and humbleness of receiving this honor from many people that I consider such dear friends of mine with whom I have worked for so long. And I just only want to say that there are two reasons that this is particularly meaningful, and I hope that you will indulge me to explain only two things. It'll be very quick. The first is not until I drove onto this center, this base today, and walked into the room and see all of the military personnel in their uniforms that I became slightly overwhelmed, and sorry. My father was an Air Force navigator, a C-130 navigator. So I grew up on Air Force bases. So I just want you to know how extra meaningful receiving this honor today with the Brazilian Air Force feels for me. Thank you so much. My father was a wonderful person, and I'm really delighted to have the opportunity to remember him today. And I want you to know that when I was at ICAO, I knew walking into that building the first day that I was not, by far, the best prepared linguist in the world. The best prepared linguists, some of them are in this room, my colleagues and friends. But I knew that wasn't me. But I also knew I was given this responsibility and I was going to do my best. And there were some aspects that made me suitable. For example, growing up in the military and living all over the world made me very cross-culturally aware. But what I wanted to tell you is, as the many days that I would go to the Air Navigation Commission or the ICAO Council, I was intimidated. You know, I was just an English teacher going to talk to these very high-level technical representatives and ambassadors from ICAO. And on the way to the beautiful ICAO chambers, I would always go into, it sounds silly, but I would go into the ladies' room because I knew that there would be nobody in the ladies' room. You want to know why? Because there were no women in the ICAO Council or on the Air Navigation Commission. I was sometimes the only woman in the room, and I would call my father. And I would say, Dad, I'm nervous. I'm going to the commission or the council. It's a really important day. They're going to decide yes or no. And my father would say, Dulces, you are only responsible for your input. You cannot control the outcome. Do you think you've prepared? And I said, Dad, I've done my best. Then he says, let it go now. Just, you've done your part. Share your information and let it go. So I'm really, my Air Force, thank you all. Thank you for your service. And I also just, thing is I have done nothing or meaningful that wasn't done with the team. I have always had a team. At ICAO, I had the Price Study Group. At Embry-Riddle, I'm so fortunate to have one of the finest aviation ever had the opportunity to work with, and that is Jennifer Roberts. She is the chair of Embry-Riddle Department of Aviation English. I'm so looking forward to seeing what she does. I also, we work as a team. And DECEA, the third reason I'm proud to receive this award here is because Brazil is genuinely a leader in aviation English in the world. I don't know what every country is doing in the world, but I know that Brazil has made an extraordinary commitment to aviation English. And you see that in the leadership in Dr. Toski, Dr. Aline Pacheco, in Dr. Natalia Andrade, and others, Natalia Guerrero, I see you back there, and all the ones that I'm missing. We are also a team working together at Embry-Riddle. And at Embry-Riddle, we have a team across the university doing aviation English. And so for all those reasons, for my Air Force father, thank you, for receiving this award in a country that is such a leader on aviation English, and on behalf of all the teams I've had the privilege of working with, and the including, I've got to say, my husband, John Wattred, is my favorite team member. Thank you. He also works at Embry-Riddle. Maybe some people know him. And one more thing I wanted to say. Yes. Dr. Eric Friganal, who gave me the opportunity to co-publish my first textbook. Thank you. And lastly, I might as well, I intend to retire next year after 40 years teaching English as a foreign language and 30 years working in the aviation industry. And I feel so great about the leadership that I'm leaving the aviation English world in the hands of people like GEIA and Brazil and Patricia and Aline and Jennifer and Andy and all my colleagues. Thank you all so very, very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Matthews. Now I would like to invite everyone to go to the outdoor area for the official event photo. Following the official event photo, please join us at the Inca Air building, where a complimentary lunch will be served. Please follow the instructions of the organizing committee.